Alright, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Mark of Balance. My name is Mark. Today we're going to be talking about Skeleton Crew Episode 6. Again, they decided to release this on a holiday, on New Year's Eve, so I'm getting this review to you a couple days late, but I hope you guys had a happy new year. So yeah, let's get into it. Episode 6 of Skeleton Crew is another solid entry. We have really great character moments with KB taking a central role in this episode. Skeleton Crew consistently has given these kids their spotlights in each of these episodes, highlighting their strengths, their weaknesses, and really rounding them out as characters. Jod also has a standout moment in this episode among his old pirate crew where he pleads for his life, and instead of it being a very generic, don't kill me, I can promise you riches, it shows why Skeleton Crew is excelling as a Star Wars show. He's able to appeal to individuals among the crew, which makes the crew feel like real characters instead of window dressing like in some other Star Wars shows where side characters aren't that important. It builds out some of the Star Wars lore because they sing this pirate song of the tale of this captain who found the treasure of Aden. And again, Jude Law is just so great in this role that it adds to his character of Jod, where he's still charismatic, he's a capable leader, and you don't know whether you're inspired by him or you think he's a scoundrel, but he can be all of that at once because Jude Law is just that good. Again, like I've said in my previous reviews, Skeleton Crew is not without its faults. There are plenty of conveniences in this episode. I don't think the dialogue is as strong as it could be. And after a handful of shows, Disney has still not yet mastered the 8-episode season of television. I feel at moments I can watch Skeleton Crew and I'm like, I feel like they could have condensed this all into 1 2.5 hour long Star Wars movie, and it would have worked just as well, maybe even better with a tighter script and a brisker pace. But at the end of the day, Skeleton Crew excels at all of the things it needs to, which is putting the characters first and having these really great moments for these characters. And it introduces a lot of interesting ideas into the Star Wars galaxy. And the story feels planned out. There was a singular direction, there were seeds planted in earlier episodes that pay off in this episode and have consistently paid off throughout the show. And that gives me confidence going into the finale or these final 2 episodes where I do feel like they're going to land this ship really well. And I'm excited to see where they go. I would be pretty shocked if it kind of all fell apart in these next 2 episodes. But again, it's Disney Star Wars. That's always a possibility. But as of right now, Skeleton Crew hasn't really let me down, and it's only gotten better as the season has gone on. So I'm excited for the penultimate episode next week, and then the series finale, or season finale. We don't know what the future plans for the show are, but I'm excited nonetheless, and that's a good feeling to be excited about a live-action Star Wars show. So, getting into the episode itself, it's pretty straightforward. The kids are shot out of a garbage chute, very similar to Luke in Cloud City. Again, the show is great at having those little callbacks to the original trilogy or other pieces of Star Wars media without feeling entirely like a ripoff of it. It feels like it's paying homage, which is what you want to see. And they ultimately have to split up where Fern and Neil go to climb to get to the ship, and KB and Wim go in an opposite direction. They follow these hermit crabs that have droid and ship parts as shells. And the reason they split up is because we have this really compelling character dynamic between KB and Fern, where it's been insinuated, but they haven't come out and said it, but KB is kind of subservient to Fern, and she just follows her and does whatever she says, and she doesn't really speak up for herself too often, and she finally breaks this week, and she stands up to her and says, no, I don't think you know what the right thing to do is. I think we should all decide on what to do next, and they kind of have a falling out, and they go in opposite directions, and this is great for all the characters because it gives us new team-ups. We have Neil with Fern, which we hadn't seen before, and Wim and KB. And it's important that shows switch up the character dynamics. I feel like it hasn't been stale, but you kind of knew what to expect with Wim and Neil interactions at this point, and you knew that Fern was always going to take charge in any KB and Fern interactions. So they really needed to mix it up. KB is a really interesting character that I'm glad they gave the space to explore more because I've gravitated towards her throughout this series, and I'm glad she got a highlight in this episode. And there's this great lesson about individuality and embracing your weaknesses and being able to call out your own weaknesses and also seeking people in your life that cover your weaknesses, but also uplift your strengths. And I think it's a really important lesson for kids that could also be applicable to adults to a degree, but I know this show is very much aimed towards kids, and Wim is a great character for her to kind of bounce off of because he's so optimistic and he's such a cheerleader as a friend, and he's always trying to big up his people. So when she's at her lowest, it's great to have Wim kind of being in her ear like, you're great, you can do all this amazing stuff, you should just tell Fern how you feel. And it's kind of the pep talk you would want at this point, and I don't think anyone else could have delivered it other than Wim, because he really believes it. I think Neil would care just as much, but Neil might sound like he's reading off a script, whereas Wim, he's more direct, he's more simple in his thought process, and I think that's really interesting because KB is half cyborg, we see in this episode, and her thought process is so beyond his, and they have this near-death experience, honestly, trying to repair KB, who seems to have suffered some sort of traumatic accident in the past where she needed to have cybernetic implants put into her head to survive. This also felt like a callback to, I think his name is Lobot in Empire Strikes Back on Cloud City, the guy with the similar headset, and he saves the day. And again, this feels like that Easter egg homage type of thing that Skeleton Crew has done a really good job at. And my favorite part of this scene, and probably my favorite piece of this episode, is when Wim saves the day, KB has a bunch of energy, and she says, "Thanks, Jedi." And I got a little bit emotional. I had a little bit of a knot in my throat just because it feels like under Disney Star Wars, the Jedi have been so scrutinized, and that magic around the Jedi and the ideals that they uphold has been stripped away. And I'm not saying criticism of the Jedi Order isn't interesting or warranted, and I think the prequels and the Clone Wars do a great job of that. But I feel under Disney, they've tried so hard to subvert expectations and dissect Star Wars and what is Star Wars and what is Jedi. Are Jedi even the good guys? And it's kind of taken away the original message that George Lucas had with the Jedi being the symbols of morality and the people you would want to aspire to be. And that's why at the end of Mandalorian Season 2, when Luke shows up, it was like a huge cathartic experience for every Star Wars fan, where you had all these reaction videos of people crying and just feeling the magic again of seeing their childhood heroes, the Jedi, being the good guys and saving the day. I feel like the sequels didn't do a great job of illustrating that, but with Mandalorian Season 2 and now Skeleton Crew, you see that recognition of how important the Jedi are as a symbol in Star Wars, not just in the galaxy, but just broadly for the Star Wars fandom. And I love that KB had this moment and the creators acknowledged that Jedi are supposed to be the heroes of Star Wars, and Wim's aspiration to be one is great. KB's recognition of him standing up to Jod last week and now saving her life is great. It's just a great Star Wars moment that I really appreciate. On the flip side, with Fern and Neil, we have a pretty simple premise where they're climbing up the ladder and Fern is like, come on, you have to keep up. And Neil reminds her, like, not everyone can be you, Fern. Not everyone is as steadfast and capable as you. And you need to recognize that if you're a leader, you need to understand your troops and your group's weaknesses. And we had her confronted by KB in the beginning of the episode, and then Neil here, where it's a very precarious situation, she needs to adapt and she needs to consider Neil. And you don't get much out of them in this episode, but I think, again, it's an important lesson for Fern to learn. And in other Star Wars shows, this might have just been a one-off thing, like, oh, Fern and Neil will just be over here while KB and Wim have the spotlight. But we still get character growth here between Neil and Fern, and that's good. That's what Star Wars shows should do. That's what any TV show should do. Before we wrap up the kids' story in this episode, we jump back to Jod, who has been captured by the old pirate crew he used to run with, and they put him on trial. They essentially say, we're going to throw you out the airlock, and he invokes this pirate code where he's able to speak on his own behalf to try to convince the crew that he should be able to live. And they have to honor the code, they have to parlay with him, and he has a little hourglass that tells him how much time he has to appeal to their better judgment. And it's a great speech because, again, Jude Law is great in this role, but it again shows that Jod is not only a scoundrel, but he's a capable leader because he knows different things about all of the crew members. Again, this is a big strength of Skeleton Crew because it gives side characters room to be characters. In Acolyte, the Jedi that were around the main characters were just cannon fodder. They weren't real things. They were just wallpaper. But in this speech, he goes up to one of the guys and says, you wanted to have a farm, right? Well, if you follow me to at Aden, you can buy an entire farm and you can live the rest of your life on your farm. And he goes over to another crew member and he's like, you wanted to lead a squadron or lead a ship. You can do that after you follow me to at Aden. All of these things show that he not only knows his crew and that they're people, but also that there is a piece of him that is a capable leader that does care, at least maybe on the surface, for his crewmates. The great thing this speech also does is it adds more lore to the Star Wars galaxy. They start to sing this pirate song that speaks of the captain and how he found the treasure on At Aden. And again, because all of the crew members know it, you get the impression that this is a pirate story that's been passed down for a long time across the galaxy. And it makes the galaxy feel lived in. It makes the pirate culture of the galaxy feel deeper. All of it is encapsulated in a very simple speech that could have been very by the books. It could have been, you want treasure, I'll lead you to treasure. But no, it was deeper. It took the time to hit all of those notes. And this is a great example as to why Skeleton Crew is succeeding as a Star Wars show. I'm not saying it's the best show on TV. I'm not saying it's even a great or amazing show. But it's a really good show. And it's enjoyable. And it respects its audience. And I just want to harp on the side character point a little bit more because it shows the effort and the care put into a show when side characters are given these little vignettes. Because Andor succeeded so much because every single character along the journey had a role to play and made an impact on the story. Whether it was the kid of the shopkeeper who got tortured, who threw the first bomb, who ignited the riot on Ferrix, whether it was Andor's ex-girlfriend's boyfriend who reported them, all of these characters gave something to the story. Even the doctor in Narkina 5, that grizzled doctor who tells them that they're not getting out and that they just switch the floors of the inmates and you never really get out of the prison. Even that, you know so much about what that doctor has seen and all the hope that he's lost. It shows the care that is put into the show, and I feel like Skeleton Crew, that again is palpable. And while these seem like small details, I think they make the biggest difference. So now it looks like Jod and his crew, or his old crew, will be heading towards At Aden. They have the coordinates. When we jump back to the kids, Fern and Neil conveniently have the Onyx Cinder, their ship, being towed down towards them from the landing pad, so they're able to jump on it. Again, it's a convenience, but it's surrounded by great character moments, and it's fun to watch. The action and the spectacle is fun, and because there's great character moments, the spectacle and action don't feel flimsy. It all feels like it's working together. So they come and save KB and Wim, who were actually about to be fed to the queen of the hermit-crabs, which was actually kind of a dark turn that all of these like cute little hermit-crabs were like, food, essentially. But they get picked up, and the ship is about to be eaten by another thing, not a living thing, but a garbage hauler. And all of the kids kind of instinctually go to the different stations on the ship that they had previously occupied, which was really cool to see, that you can kind of see the crew forming. You know, Wim jumps on the turrets. He's like, I'll destroy it. He's the adventurer. He's like, oh no, I can just blow things up. It'll be super fun. KB runs to the engine room. She's like, I'll give you more power. I could start this engine up. Neil, it's funny. They're like, Neil, you flew the ship before. And he's like, I didn't know what I was doing, but okay, I'll do it. And Fern takes the captain's chair and is kind of ordering everyone around. And she makes the final call that saves their lives. This was all, again, a lot of showing, not telling. It wasn't like, Wim, you once man the guns, you go to the guns. KB, you're a half droid, you can do the engine room. It all just felt natural, which is good. This was a good episode for the kids to feel like a group, not just four separate individuals or boys versus girls. And Skeleton Crew needed an episode like that because the kids have to rely on each other now that there's no adults around. They need to be able to realistically survive on their own out in the galaxy, which they do. And the ship breaks apart and they're able to get away and their ship looks brand new. It was pretty cool. It was like the first time I saw a ship molt in the Star Wars galaxy. What's really important here is that this wasn't a convenience. It wasn't a Deus Ex Machina. They did allude to this possibility when they first saw the button, and SM's like, don't touch that button, it'll destroy the hull or something like that. So the seed was planted. They didn't just say, oh, I wonder what this button does. It was a payoff. This show gives you something and then it pays off later in the show. It's not just like, oh, this ship has this capability now. Like, that has happened in other Star Wars shows. But in Skeleton Crew, it's earned, it's well thought out. So now the kids are heading for at Aden. They have the coordinates. KB has them stored. I wonder if they'll go pick up SM. I don't know if SM is just gone for the rest of the show or not. Jod and his crew are headed to Aden, and I'm assuming the parents with Kerry Condon and Wim's father, Wendell, I'm assuming the parents will play a pivotal role in next week's episode, either helping the kids from the ground, whether they infiltrate the commissioner's office or the security system to let the kids through the barrier, or the kids get caught and the parents have to break them out. I feel like the parents have to have a big role to play next week, and if not, it'll feel like a huge waste with Kerry Condon as an actor, and that'll feel like the weakest part of the show if it doesn't pay off, because at the end of the day, this is a kids show. It's supposed to highlight the kids, but don't introduce the parents and this greater intrigue if you were only going to give us like 5-10 minutes. I feel like they should be more integral to the story, and I'm curious if by the end of the show I'll look back and say, wow, that could have been way more fleshed out. But we don't know what the next 2 weeks will be. I'm excited to see how it all works together, because Jod's going to be coming in and his pirate crew is going to be like, where's the treasure? And the treasure's going to be guarded, obviously, by this hive mind of robots who all protect the mint. And we don't know who the commissioner is. There's been theories that it's Wim's mother, and that's why we haven't really seen her. There's theories that it's a robot that is kind of controlling everything on an old protocol. There's my theory that I've kind of seen float around, which is it could be an Imperial Remnant leader who, this is how the First Order is being funded. He is running it in the shadows and siphoning the funds to fuel the new First Order fleet and Starkiller base. I don't know, but there's a lot of fun theories to be had, and that's exciting going into the finale of a Star Wars show. Overall, I enjoyed this episode. My main criticisms boil down to the conveniences, as I mentioned. Some dialogue portions felt like they could have been punched up a bit, and I think sometimes the pacing feels a bit off. Like this wanted to be a 2-hour and 30-minute movie, but they wanted to stretch it out over 8 episodes because Disney is too afraid to greenlight movies after the failures of their last 2. But that's just my potential theory about the behind the scenes of this show. I think I would have really loved to see a Goonies type Star Wars movie released in 2024, 2025. I think it would have made Disney money, even if they didn't have a bunch of recognizable characters as their first movie to jump back in after Rise of Skywalker. But I think Jude Law and the marketing could have really sold it. But I am not in a position of power at Disney, so take my opinion for what it is. But that pretty much concludes my thoughts for this episode. Thank you guys again for listening. Please leave a rating on whatever streaming service you're listening to this on. Please give me a follow at @star_wars_mark of balance over on Instagram. Let me know your theories about the next 2 episodes, about at Aden, who you think the commissioner is, who do you think the old pirate captain is, do you think we'll see him? Where does this show end up? Do we get a season 2? Let me know. Let's talk some Star Wars over on Instagram. Appreciate you guys. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, and may the Force be with you. Peace.